Hi, friends. I'm here today for another interview to discuss some of the themes from my forthcoming book, Chronic Hope: Raising a Child with Chronic Illness with Grace, Courage, and Love. And the book comes out on April 13th, and the ebook is available now over on Amazon and Barnes& Noble. And if you've missed any of the earlier videos, you can find them on my website, bonnieoneil.com, or over on my YouTube channel. And I hope you'll check some of them out. But today I'm with my really good friend, Renetta Reeves. And Renetta and I have known each other for over 25 years, since our families lived together in the same town in South Florida. And so we actually lived in the same neighborhood. And Renetta and I, our families went to the same church. And Renetta and I actually taught together in the same little Sunday school class with 2-year-olds. So you know that we're loving people if we could handle Sunday morning,
That's true.
including our own too. And we also had the joy of being pregnant together at the same time. Renetta with her youngest and me with my middle guy, Austin. And so Renetta is a medical doctor, and she has 3 children, 2 sons and a daughter. And her oldest son is Colton. He's now 31, and she has a daughter and a son who are both in their mid to late 20s. So her son Colton was diagnosed with a developmental disorder at age 2. A developmental intellectual disorder. And he was diagnosed with autism a couple years later, and then in his early adolescence with a seizure disorder. He lived at home with them, with the family, until he was about 12 years old. And at that point, I think he was already pushing 6 foot tall as
Pretty
I.
much, yes.
And so since that time, he has lived in this wonderful group home in Florida. And so there's so much that we could talk about today as we just sort of take this teeny little insider's view into Renetta's story. But I really do want to spend some time talking about caregiver exhaustion, because if there's anyone I know who has experienced caregiver exhaustion, it's Renetta. We shared life together during the period of time when Colton was about age 5 to age 10. And what a bundle of energy he was and still is. But as a really young one, it was incredible. I also want to hear how chronic illness has impacted your family life. But first, as we get started, Renetta, could you just describe Colton's condition for us a little bit, and tell us how and when he was diagnosed?
Yes, so Colton was really kind of officially diagnosed around age 2, but very early on we had concerns. It would seem like maybe he wasn't hearing us. I think that was kind of our initial thought, and I was afraid maybe he had, was deaf or couldn't hear well. And I just remember crying and crying, thinking that that's what he might have, realizing now that that would not have been anything, that he couldn't overcome. But the hearing tests were normal, and then he would, wasn't walking or talking um, along the normal developmental milestones. But still, it took a while until it became relatively obvious that he wasn't going to meet those milestones. That it wasn't just something, you learn how to talk between this age and this age, and he'd it was about 2 years old when it became very obvious that he just wasn't going to speak.
Wow. And how was that, coming to realize that?
um I think even though we kind of knew that in our hearts, to have someone say that out loud was very different. And it was very devastating. And because it was kind of a vague diagnosis, so we still didn't know what that meant for him. We
Yeah,
didn't know what that meant for us.
yeah,
But it was very hard on both his father and I. And, I remember thinking, I don't think I'm ever going to feel, that same level of joy and happiness again that I have been able to feel before that.
Yeah.
Fortunately, I've been able to realize that's not true. But I just didn't think that I just couldn't see what the future was going to be like. And it was scary.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember when I was living in South Florida with you, and I remember you saying that you and Colton's father both shared a certain level of guilt over um, not having received the diagnosis earlier, that since you were both medical doctors and you felt like, I felt there was something wrong, but I didn't stand up and press for it. And I just felt so guilty about that. And one of the chapters in Chronic Hope is just simply called guilt. And I just talk about caregiver guilt. Why do you think we parents carry so much guilt about our children's chronic conditions?
You think you've done everything that you could possibly do. But like in our case, we were residents and we were working, and we think, oh gosh, what if I was exposed to something at work, when I was pregnant, or what if we, Ron, his father was a pediatrician, and so there was a lot of people who would say things like, well, didn't you see this? Didn't you see that? Um, and so we feel like, well, if we'd have done something earlier, the outcome would be different. And, we come to realize now that that's not the case, but we feel like we want to put so much of this in our own hands.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Instead of God's hands.
Right. We want control, right? We want to be able to control the outcomes of our children's lives. And
Right. Mm-hmm.
it's so normal. And in fact, in Chronic Hope, I talk so much about that. I've come to realize that the book really, it's all about control and letting go of control so that we can grab onto hope that's waiting for us. So how did you come to lay down some of that guilt and really kind of pick up acceptance of your son's condition and that this was your life?
That was hard. Sometimes I wonder if I still wonder about that.
Thank you for being honest, because I
I don't really have like a good, this is what you do and it's going to be better. But I came to realize that he was not unhappy. He I started thinking about, I say that I think all life is valuable.
Yeah.
And so what I need to start doing is not looking at the things that he can't do, but look at the value in his life. And the joy that he can bring us, and the things that he can do, and the things that he's teaching the other people around us. And that became huge.
Yeah. Don't you find that there are ways that you grow as a person that you would have never been able to grow in if you weren't stretched in that way with this particular?
Absolutely. I mean, we always laugh because, that by far the most popular person in our family is Colton. If we have a birthday party, everyone who we invite to Colton's party will come, and some people will invite themselves. It's hard not to love Colton. And so it's hard to feel like God did us wrong there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Even though I'm sure in the early days, that may have been one of your feelings. I know it was one of mine was, what are you doing here, God? Because this is not the life that I signed up for. But then I think there's so much learning about letting go of this control in this journey of parenting this child and coming to a place of acceptance that we end up being more free as a result of having this child.
Yeah, when people would say, God won't give you more than you can handle,
Mhm.
and I would think, oh, but he tries. and and I don't know, he's almost there.
Yeah, yeah. So let's talk about that a little bit, especially about, some of the caregiver exhaustion. And so I remember when, again, this is the time frame in Colton's life when he was between like ages 5 and 10. And and Renetta, you had this habit of standing in the kitchen every night after working a full day as a doctor out of the house, coming in the house and standing guard basically in the kitchen, because if you didn't, then Colton would be ripping open the refrigerator and taking everything out of the cabinets and out of the shelves. And so you would bake every single night. And so, or pretty much every single night. And I got to be the happy recipient of a lot of those baked goods.
Yes, someone needed to be.
So, can you just share with us a little bit about maybe just give a quick little insight into why it was so exhausting, and then how did you handle some of that? I mean, just before we started the interview, you said that now that Colton's 31, he can actually sit for 5 minutes at a time, and that's a really good improvement for him. And I do remember that when he was younger, that he literally could not sit still. So can you describe a little bit for you as the caregiver, like how was that to handle that much energy all the time?
I think I just kind of had to put myself in another zone. I had to not wish that I was sitting on the couch.
Mm,
I I
yeah,
had to not. I just had to think of ways like the baking. That I could take that and make it into something that didn't feel so burdensome, because sometimes it was just
yeah,
it felt like a burden.
yeah.
And we were fortunate. We had family who was willing to come in. They didn't live in town, but they were willing to come in and help. We had babysitters. I had a lot of help, and I know that not everyone has that. And so I just looked at that as like a necessity and not like a luxury.
Yeah.
And I tried to look at the time that I was, um, having to focus on that, how to make that useful, and how to maybe involve the other kids
Yeah. Mhm.
in some of that. And they became very much my helpers.
Mm.
And my daughter would sit there with him at the bar, and should help him when he would throw something. She'd go get it. And uh, they became very much my helpers.
Mm. Let's talk about that. How did having a child with such pronounced chronic conditions, How did that impact your family?
For one thing, it's a huge impact on your family when it's the first one to even make that decision
Yeah,
to go ahead and have others.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know, you
yeah,
think, do I have the time, the energy?
yeah.
Is this genetic? Are the other children, going to have this?
Is that a big
So
fear for you of
yeah,
having
it
kids?
was a big fear. I was pregnant with my daughter when the first diagnosis came, but then um, to go ahead and have a third child, that was a decision. That
Yeah.
was, I mean, and a very good one, by the way. But and it also, you kind of, I didn't have that built-in confidence as a parent. Okay, I've been through this. I know what to do.
Yeah,
You
sure.
know, I felt,
Having your second was like having a first, really, in some way.
yeah, I felt like, uh, I don't know if I'm doing this right. Maybe some of the things I did when Colton was young were the wrong things, and now this happened, and so uh,
Yeah. Again.
some of those parenting things that should be joy, like when they say their first word, we were just like waiting, 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 and
Yeah.
until they said it,
Right.
we couldn't relax.
Yeah. It's like you're holding your breath until
Right.
that.
Yeah. Yeah. Fortunately, you know, they they did most of those things very early, so we didn't have to worry about that. But it was, that fear was always there.
Yeah. Did they ever tire of having a sibling with such complex conditions?
um, yeah, yeah, absolutely. My youngest son was 4 when when Colton went to the group home, so he didn't deal with that as much. But my daughter, um, she would prefer to go to other people's homes rather than have people come to our home and have him pull their hair or mess up their games that they were playing. And so um, I kind of feel like I missed out on a lot of that
Yeah.
part of her growing up, because she was always with her friends at their house.
Yeah. 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 So did you, I think you said a few minutes ago that something that was very helpful for you was just trying to say, okay, this is my life and I can't change it. So what can I do in this moment to really accept it and embrace what it is? And so, like the baking, for example.
Right. Uh-huh.
Was that helpful for you, that kind of thinking, when you would, for example, be sad that for your children that this was tough having a brother with those conditions?
um, I think very early I saw the good things that came out of that.
Mm,
Because
mhm.
I also worked at a center for people with developmental disabilities that kind of went into that as a result of this. It wasn't something I had um, ever initially planned to
Yeah,
do.
yeah, yeah,
But I know my daughter, you know, when she would meet someone, she'd just, very nonchalantly say, "Do you talk or do you not talk?" And it didn't matter
yeah,
what you
yeah,
said.
yeah,
It was just, she just wanted to know, so that would,
yeah,
then drive what they would do next.
yeah.
But she
How old
was
was
very used to people not
yeah,
talking or not doing this, or
was this like when she was very little?
oh, very little. Yeah, she'd
Yeah.
and then she had kind of a list of questions. She had,
Wonder which bucket to put you in, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Do you talk? Do you not talk? She loved to ask people if they were Christmas or Hanukkah. Um,
Oh
and
God.
the answer didn't matter. She just needed to kind of know these things.
Yeah, yeah. So how did you navigate your life so that you made sure that you had enough time with your other children as well?
Well, that's where some of the guilt comes in too, because I didn't feel like I did. I
Mm,
didn't feel like I did.
mm,
Um, but then if I left Colton, I feel guilty that
yeah,
we left Colton.
yeah,
Um, but I mean, it just had to be, um, it just had to be forefront in our mind, and we had to plan.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
we couldn't be spontaneous
Mhm.
then.
Oh, yeah, no,
Yeah,
no.
everything was very planned.
Yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, yeah.
And I I would just even hate to read a parenting book, because I was like, I can't do that.
Yeah, yeah. I imagine at a certain point, you just had to come to the realization that we're just doing this family the way that seems to make the most sense right now to us, and we'll try it. And if it doesn't work, we will reevaluate and we'll do something different.
Yes, and you know, I think everything didn't go smooth along the way. Everything didn't go smooth for the other children along the way,
Mhm.
but the end result has been very good.
Wasn't for any family, but
Right. Yeah. But the end result is I have three very wonderful children who have grown into, you know, caring, loving adults.
yeah,
And,
yeah, yeah.
you
And
know,
that was the end game, right? I mean, that's
uh-huh.
when we decide to become a parent, it's really all about how do we build these lifelong relationships with our children, and that's really what it's all about. And I think even for your children, for Colton's siblings, the way that they learned love by loving their brother is a very special kind of love, and they also learned grace and courage and hope by having this shared life with Colton. And so I think that's a piece of it that when we're in the thick of it of raising them, it's very easy to forget about that because we want to have this idyllic life. But there's so much character development and just really good things that come out of a, a family that's as challenging as yours was when the children were little.
Yeah, and I think that also, I mean, when I say I have three loving, caring children, I mean Colton too.
Yeah,
I mean, he's, and I feel like anyone else, he could have um, turned out to be more angry, or and
yeah,
um, had a very different personality, had he not had that kind of care and acceptance that he had, not from just from his family, but his extended family and our
right.
friends and neighbors, everyone um, really treated him with love and respect. And
Yeah,
I know that I am very fortunate in that, because not everyone has that.
yeah, yeah,
So
and
I mean, that's the other thing is, I mean, I really had a very large group to fall back on.
yeah, yeah,
And I never for a moment didn't know that and didn't appreciate that.
yeah, yeah. Oh, that's so important, that the importance of community is, when we are raising a child with a chronic illness, is the importance of that can't be understated, right?
Right.
It's very,
Hmm.
very important. And in for some people, that's sharing community with folks who have a child with the similar underlying condition. And then for others, it's just extended family and friends who really understand and love us and can support us in what we're carrying. And that's just
Hmm.
so important. And yes, I agree. Colton is one of the most loving people. Absolutely, absolutely. Well, Renetta, you were one of the readers of some of the early chapters that I was working on in Chronic Hope. And so I was just wondering if you had any favorite chapter or some takeaway that a favorite section that you just want to share that was meaningful to you.
Um, well, I remember when you told me this, and then I read it in the book again. But my heart just broke, and I don't want to cry. Like when your mother
Mm,
had all that guilt
mm,
and was able to get that off her chest.
mhm.
And I just think how um, you know, when I first had Colton, I didn't have a mentor because before people had put people with developmental disabilities like this, like in homes and stuff. I
Yeah,
didn't really have um, a mentor who could help me through this, who had been through it,
yeah,
maybe other people at the same level, the same period of life, but not like someone older.
yeah, yeah.
Um, and I just, think that might have been something similar for
Mm,
your mother, and you had that in your mother, and what a blessing.
yeah,
And I just think we've we've been given this challenge,
yeah,
and then it's really our responsibility to be there, for others, maybe even seek them out.
yeah,
Some groups like you know the diabetes groups and stuff, those are more organized, others are less organized.
mm,
Sometimes people have come to those things voluntarily,
mhm,
but sometimes people are and I see this as patients come to me too. They're
mm,
so overwhelmed.
yeah,
Going to a support meeting is a lot,
yeah, yeah,
something they can't arrange,
right,
you
right.
know. And I just think about how um, we've had others be there for us, and
Mhm,
then if we can be there now for others.
yeah. Oh, that's so true. That's such a good word. I know whenever I get a call from someone who will say, "Oh, my friend's child was just diagnosed with type 1. Would you reach out to them, or could I give them your phone number?" is what they'll always ask. And I'll say, "No, no, give me theirs because they won't be able to reach out right away. I need to reach
Right.
to them."
Hmm.
So that's such a really good, kind of last word to leave us on is the importance of community. Like if we have experienced that, then we should just give that back and return that to others, and to look for where we can also offer community and hope to someone who's maybe just not quite as far along on their journey as we are.
Hmm.
So that's great. Thank you, Renetta. It's been so good to be together today and to hear about a little bit about your story and get a picture of your beautiful son, Colton. Thank you for just helping us see how you have gained emotional strength and hope during your journey. So again, my forthcoming book, Chronic Hope, Raising a Child with Chronic Illness with Grace, Courage, and Love, is available now on Kindle and Nook, and it will be released in physical copy on April 13th. So you can go on over to my website, bonnieoneil.com, to get 2 free advanced chapters of the book if you'd like to just check it out that way, and also a free gift for pre-ordering the book. So thanks again for listening today. Thanks again, Renetta, for being here.
Thank you, Bonnie. I'm so excited for this book to come out.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Take care of one another, and I'll see you soon. Bye.